it's not so important what I have said, so just only thank you so much. It's a tremendous honor for me to present our great friend and our inspiration, Ambassador Bobuin Valerye, and I'm sure that his message is going to be a clear uh, inspiration and a clear address about how your actions can change the reality of your societies, of your countries, and how leadership in politics can be no, yeah, can be a drive of change and can be an impulse for our world. So, Ambassador, what you have done, it's amazing, and for me, it's a clear inspiration. It's a great honor for us to receive you in the Global Youth Leadership Forum. Just before giving you the micro, I want to thank the IOM, and I want to thank Christopher for the opportunity to receive Ambassador here in Santander. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys can really understand me, and it's a privilege and it's an honor for me to be with you this morning in the beautiful city of Santander, Spain. I would like to thank Jacobo. I would like to thank Christopher for giving me this incredible opportunity to be with you. When Christopher told me I've been invited to this forum, we had a long discussion. What am I going to come and say here? It took me about 18 hours to write something to come and share with you. And I asked Christopher, what am I going to say? He's like, speak from your heart. You're going to come here, you're going to meet youth leaders, you're going to meet young people. They want to hear your story. Don't come and make it all about politics, about everything. Relate your personal journey to uh, the objective of the forum so that you'll be able to pass your message across. And I sat for like 18 hours continuously writing, stopping. And I hope I will not bore you with the little I've prepared here. Oh, so, okay, let's go. I know here we've got ministers, we've got ambassadors, so I will always be very diplomatic and start by Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and fellow youth leaders. I am truly honored to stand before you today as a Migration Youth Ambassador for the African Union and the International Organization of Migration. I would first like to express my sincerest gratitude to the organizers of the Global Youth Leadership Forum and the International Organization of Migration, the Regional Office for West and Central Africa, Mr. Christopher. They gave me this incredible opportunity. I would also like to thank the Spanish government, especially the embassy in South Africa, for your invaluable support in expediting my visa process. Okay, I've said a thank you. I've given an introduction. Now I would like to talk about my personal journey on how I came to become an ambassador. It might be a boring story for some, it might be an interesting story, but I'm speaking most especially to the youth I see here, the youth of Europe. And it's somehow sad that we cannot have African youth here, but we also got youth from South America and other areas. And I hope this message it's going to mean something to you, and you're going to be global ambassadors, even in your little areas, your various communities, and in your respective organizations, and in the work you do every day. My journey to becoming a migration youth ambassador started 27 years ago when I was born in Cameroon. I am not going to stand and tell you here that I was the greatest kid. I was the respectful one who always took first in class. No, quite the opposite. In fact, in my first year of primary school in December 2000, I came last in class, number 32 out of 32. And I was like, my mom kept on pushing, don't worry, you'll get this. I want you to sit and imagine what it means in a room of this, like 32 people. And you're the last student in class in the first year of primary school. Like, that is how my story started. Even through my undergraduate days, I was not exceptional. I was still figuring out life and what I was going to do with life. I was not even serious in school, but I was going to school for the sake of, if you don't go to school, your dad is going to kick you out of the house. So, like, that is why I think I was going to university. Uh, 2016, I had my first degree, the bachelor's degree in law. I was 20 years old then. And then, like many other African youths, I had plans to migrate to Europe through any means, either through the front door or the back door, where I knew I was gonna go to Europe. And I had no idea what I was gonna do in Europe once I arrived in Europe. I just knew, come rain, come shine, come snow, come dust, I was gonna be in Europe. Europe was the dreamland. That's the mentality many of us have in Africa. And as is the case with many sub-Saharan African countries, Cameroon has a very high unemployment rate. The International Labour Organization notes that 38.1% estimated of the total working population, it's 38% of the estimated total working population in sub-Saharan Africa. That is the total working population in sub-Saharan Africa, 38%. So imagine a population, let's say there's 100%, the population which is employed, which can take, let me not say take up themselves, because sometimes the employment is not really meaningful, but that is the population which is employed, 38% out of 100. And of this 38%, we've got 23.5% which are young people from this 38% which is employed. So I want you to imagine this is the reality of the average African youth in sub-Saharan Africa. And in sub-Saharan Africa, 70% of the population is youth. So I want you to put yourself and imagine what the typical African youth goes through. And then imagine for the African youth whose country is ravaged by war and conflict. That was my case too in Cameroon. In 2016, when I got my degree, Cameroon started experiencing a civil war, which is now known globally as the Anglophone crisis. And in this crisis, 700,000 people have been displaced. 6,000 civilians have been killed. And there have been 70,000 refugees created. And this is an ongoing war since 2016 up to now. So the average Cameroonian youth in those regions where there is war cannot access basic opportunities, cannot develop, cannot benefit from this global youth leadership forum which I am here today. And that is not just for me in Cameroon. That is the setting for most countries in sub-Saharan Africa. That is what most of the youth go through. And many youth in sub-Saharan Africa, they do not live, they just exist. Some of us here in Europe, you live. We say that we've got a local parlance where we say you're living the life. Yeah, in Europe, people live. In sub-Saharan Africa, the reality is people just exist. They are just statistics. So within this context, I took the option of entering Europe very serious. I was like, I was going to go to Europe. And this is the kind of context which pushes many youth to want to migrate to Europe. If you understand the context of all what is happening, you will not be surprised why a youth will wake up today and would decide to take the perilous journey, either by sea or through the desert, to come to Europe or to migrate to America. In my quest to migrate, I immediately realized I was not going to be able to fund this trip. My parents were not going to be able to send me to university in Europe. It's really expensive. So I was like, okay, the legal means is out of the door. I'm going to use the illegal means to come to Europe. But however, the numbers are frightening. UNICEF notes that 11 children die every week attempting to cross the central Mediterranean Sea migration route. Overall, more than 8,400 Europe-bound migrants perished at sea while attempting to cross the Mediterranean over the last 4 years. This is a number which keeps on rising every day. I want you to imagine, for the last 4 years, 8,400 people have died. 8,400 people have died just trying to cross the sea, the Mediterranean. That does not account for the number trying to pass through the desert. That is just the number passing through the sea. The numbers are really staggering. And when I looked at this, I was like, no, Europe, I love Europe, but I'm not going to risk my life. I'll remain in Cameroon. And from that was in 2017. And this brought me to the lowest point in my life, 2017. I was then unsure of what to do next. Yet, in the shadows of doubt, I unearthed the strength to forge a path uncharted. In the embrace of this adversity, I uncovered the resilience to carve my own narrative, painting my life the way I wanted it to be. And that is what I think we should do. Like me, I think many of you young leaders here, you face your own challenges, or soon enough, you're going to experience your own 2017 moment. Challenges and uncertainties as you look to define your journeys and make meaning of your life. These challenges might be similar to mine, but I doubt. But you might also have your own challenges you face, and challenges which are also specific to the context of where you come from. Challenges which may be specific to Spain, challenges which may be specific to Honduras, challenges which may be specific to El Salvador. These are your own challenges. These are your 2017 moments. How do you overcome this 2017 moment? So I do not come and stand before you as the holder of the universal answers who says, you must do this to become an ambassador, you will do this. No, I do not have it. And even if I had it, it worked for me only. I'm not sure it's going to work for you. But I would like to remind each and every one of you here that you have a unique story. And in those stories lie the answers. The solutions that resonate most authentically within your journeys. 3 weeks ago, I was in Mali. I was working on a youth program to see how we could incorporate youth and transitional justice mechanisms during as a result of trying to address violent extremism. And I met an old man who told me, la solution d'un problème, c'est dans le problème. That is French for which says, the solution of a problem is in the problem. If you have a problem, the solution of it is in the problem. It's not going to come from elsewhere. So if you think you're going to overcome your challenges, if you think you could collaborate, if you think you could come together to make a better world, yes, you can. If you think you cannot overcome those challenges, then you are absolutely right. It's all about you, what you think. Do you think you can do it? If you think you can do it, then you're right. If you think you cannot do it, then you're still right. I had to go through 2017 to develop the resilience I now have. The drive to give your best and make something of your life in spite of the odds betting against you. The desire to create and force my own luck. And from my 2017 to September 2023, which I am now before you in Santander, I have been able to complete 2 master's degrees in law. I graduated as a best student in my faculty, and I'm currently in the final year of a PhD in constitutional law. That is from the 2017 where I was rock bottom. And now I manage numerous projects in Africa looking to address conflict using transitional justice. And now standing before you as the ambassador for the International Organization of Migration and the African Union. That is what has happened since 2017. The 2017 where I was lost, I did not know what to do. I wanted to come to Europe by all means. But in spite of that, I faced my challenges and I overcame it. And within that time, I can repeat, I have had 2 master's degrees. I am in the final year of my PhD, and I am now ambassador from 2017 to 2023. So for my journey, the key essential was resilience. The mentality which ensures that despite the challenges which society throws at you, you remain poised to change your own narrative. The mentality that sees you sending applications despite the 1,000 rejections. You receive 1,000 rejections, but you keep on sending the 1,001 application. That's resilience. That's what saw me through. And this is what is also going to see you drive a positive change in your societies, despite the traditional barriers already present. This is what made me a youth leader. And I believe this is what makes you a youth leader too. And this is what will push you further to transform your society. Now I would like to talk about my role as Migration Youth Ambassador. I think I've spoken a lot about myself already. So even as Migration Youth Ambassador, new challenges abound. There is still a whole lot I am yet to understand. There's still a whole lot I'm yet to learn. In fact, this is the first time there has ever been a Migration Youth Ambassador for Africa. And this is also the first official outing of such ambassador. Therefore, the history of the African Migration Youth Ambassador will always remember the Global Youth Leadership Forum in the beautiful city of Santander, Spain. So this is the first time there has been a youth ambassador for migration in Africa. And this is the first official outing. And what an honor it is that the first official outing of the youth migration ambassador is in the Global Youth Leadership Forum in Santander, Spain. I think we deserve a clap for that. Thank you. So history will always remember that the African youth migration ambassador will always, always, always be twinned with the Global Youth Leadership Forum here. One of my duties as ambassador is to amplify the voices of African youth and advocate for safe and legal migration. Within this context, I reflect on the theme of this year's forum, economic trends and global cooperation. That is what is written there, economic trends and global cooperation. I seek to relate it to the current theme of the African Union this year, which is accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area is to create a single African market for goods and services with free movement of people and investments, and to promote economic integration and development across the continent. I find it remarkably intriguing that a seamless synergy exists between this theme and the African Union theme of the year. The African Continental Free Trade Area and the forum's focus, they are like two sides of the same coin, like the two faces of the Roman god Janus. There is sound the essential need for collaboration and inclusive economic growth. By enabling youth to move safely and legally, we can unleash a wealth of potential that will transcend boundaries, promote African unity, and drive global economic growth. This involves a conscious willingness to create a nurturing environment where the ordinary African youth can thrive, and his or her dreams and ambitions are not hindered by the threat of irregular migration, but rather strengthened and encouraged by the opportunities born from global cooperation. I would once more like to thank the South African Embassy in Spain for realizing this dream for me, for making it possible for me to have my visa in record time. This is what we call global cooperation, where African youth who are invited to such forum, they are not hindered by unrealistic visa expectations, which makes it impossible for them to come and cooperate in such a global forum. This is what I'm pushing for: safe and legal migration. Migration which is made accessible for all, which is not restricted only to the rich few, but which is made available for all. This kind of cooperation, this is what is going to drive the African continent forward. It's going to drive our collaboration with Europe and the world in general. This is going to drive the global economy. This is the meaning of collaboration. This is the meaning of collaboration. Collaborating with African youth is not just a partnership. It is an investment in the future of Africa and by extension the world. In sub-Saharan Africa, I repeat, the youth comprise a staggering 70% of the total population. This is not a statistic. It is an energetic and dynamic force brimming with innovation, determination, and the potential to drive a transformative global change. Moreover, despite its current challenges with a host of conflicts and underdevelopment, Africa is the most profitable region in the world. The most profitable region in the world is Africa. Consider this. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, between 2006 and 2011, the return on foreign direct investment in Africa reached an impressive 11.4%, surpassing the global rate of 7.1%. That means if you invested in Africa, you're sure of an 11.4% return. If you invest anywhere else in the world, your investment is going to yield a profit of 7.1%. This makes Africa the most profitable region in the world. Africa is also projected as the second fastest growing region in the world. That is trailing only behind Asia for the year 2023, which means Africa is growing even more than Europe, growing more than the United States of America, and trailing only behind Asia. Now, I want you to imagine, take your time, in your quiet moments, envision the endless possibilities that await the world when we could harness this youth-driven energy in Africa in tandem with the transformative power of the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is going to be a win for both the world and the African youth. By promoting and enabling legal migration for our youth within the framework of the African Continental Free Trade Area in seamless synergy with this year's theme, economic trends and global cooperation, we could unlock a host of benefits. For the rest of the world, this is the first benefit we could have. For the rest of the world, it is a means of having access to a developing market brimming with innovation and entrepreneurial drive. This would provide the opportunity to form long-term collaborations that promote social inclusion and reduce global inequality, driving the agenda of sustainable development. Also, it is a chance for the African Union and its member states to fulfill the long-awaited ideal of an integrated and prosperous Africa. It is an opportunity to deepen regional collaboration and boost intra-African trade and promote economic resilience. Most importantly, for the African youth, what is this global forum going to yield? The theme of this global forum: economic trends and cooperation. If we come together, how is this going to push forward the agenda, push forward a positive and sustainable agenda, a beneficial agenda for the African youth? It is a road to equal success, equal access to opportunities, a portal to their hopes and aspirations, and an alternative to circumvent the dangers of undocumented migration. So if we would come together in our various capacities, in our various communities, to push for an agenda of safe and legal migration, this is going to stop African youth from wanting to undertake the dangerous journeys, either through the sea or through the desert. We should all come together to make it possible that when we are in such a forum, we could have more African youth sitting here, such that we're not going to have only the representative of the African youth. We could have African youth themselves telling you their own stories. I'm not going to be the one telling my story. I hope next year we could push forward that agenda, such that if I am here next year, I will be here with a host of other African youth. When I speak of collaboration with African youth, I do not just think of the African youth in isolation. I think of their potential in significantly contributing to the expansion of the global economy. So imagine this is Europe, and Europe can have all the access of the 70% workforce in Africa. Imagine the untapped potential which is still left. Yesterday, I was listening to one of the speakers saying Spain is encouraging people to come to the rural areas and develop the economy as regards agriculture. Imagine you come into partnership with the African youth. This is going to be beneficial for both the African youth and beneficial for Spain itself. This is something which I think we should really consider. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, fellow youth leaders, I cannot stress enough the importance of encouraging, creating, and enabling a conducive environment for safe and legal migration. The alternative exposes African youth to immense risks with gory consequences. I call on the leaders here present in their various capacities to support and join me as we look to realize the potential of African youth. I urge you all to have honest dialogues and discussions with African youth so that you can make informed decisions. I do not just want us to sit and make decisions. I want us to make those decisions after having had dialogues with African youth to understand where they are coming from. Like I said, the solution of a problem isn't the problem. Discuss with African youth, understand the root causes of the problems, then it's going to enable you to make informed decisions. This is in the spirit of pushing the trend of economic development and meaningful collaboration. I urge you to continue to give African youth access to such high-level platforms and policy-making arenas so that their voices are heard and they meaningfully partake in decisions which shape their lives. I call on you, the young leaders here present from Spain, from El Salvador, from Honduras, from Mexico, from all over the world, from France, all of you here present, I call on you. I call on you. I call on you. I call on you. Please advocate. Advocate for safe and legal migration in all your communities. I am talking as a representative of the African youth. I am talking in cognizance of what the average African youth faces, the youth in areas of conflict. I'm calling on you to become their voices here. Push for them to participate like you. Push for them to benefit from the same opportunities you have. Push for them to also be able to sit in such high-level forums and share their expertise. In all your respective capacities, when you go back to work tomorrow, in the course of your activities, always remember you've got to push for an agenda of meaningful collaboration with the African youth in the domain of safe and legal migration. I call on you all to be ambassadors for that cause. Once again, I will extend my gratitude to the Global Youth Leadership Forum and the International Organization of Migration for this incredible opportunity. Together, we can build a world where the aspirations of our generation are realized and where migration is of choice and not of despair. Thank you all, and let us engage in this journey of leadership together. Let us engage in this journey of leadership together towards achieving a sustainable future. Thank you.
So I'm a representative, I'm a member of Congress in Mexico, and I was voted by the Mexicans abroad. That means the diaspora around the world. And I would like to ask you, comparing to what Africa is doing right now and what they're doing on the OIM, what are like the main targets or strategies that you can see or you can say that Africa is doing correctly that can be extended to other parts of the world, especially Latin America, because most of us come from Latin America, and there's a new migration trend going through Latin America from Africa. So obviously the primary route is to Europe, but the second one is going all the way to Latin America, Brazil, then all the way to Central America up to Mexico, and then the US. So what are like the main strategies that you can foresee that are working in Africa that you can see in terms of youth, for example, because the diaspora right now comprehends people that are in their late 20s, but most of them are in their 30s up to 50s, and they're like mostly active economically. So what are those strategies that you can see that are being well done in Africa and that can be exported to other parts of the world?
Thank you for your question, Congressman. That is a very interesting question when you're asking about the strategies. I would like us to, and you've mentioned the route using from Africa going towards Mexico and going up to America. I'm very much familiar with that, given I'm a Cameroonian, and many Cameroonians are using that path to go to America. But first, we need to address why are they doing it. Then we'll be able to look at the strategies which have been implemented. The most resounding reason it's conflict. For the specific route you've used, conflict. For instance, like in my presentation, I made mention of Cameroon. Cameroon has been undergoing a civil war since 2016 till now. 6,000 lives have been lost. 700,000 people have been internally displaced. And 78,000 have been made refugees. So within this setting, people are trying to have, should I say, not a better life, but are trying to escape the impact of war. And how do we now resolve this war and this conflict, which is the root causes? One of the root, it's not the only cause, but one of the root causes of why people are looking forward to migrate. From an African Union perspective, I will draw your attention to the African Union Transitional Justice Policy of 2019. This is a policy which has been implemented by the African Union to try to resolve conflicts in many of these areas. And I think it's a good policy, and it's been working so far with some levels of success. And like I earlier said, la solution d'un problème, c'est dans le problème. The solution of a problem is in the problem. If you're looking at a migration problem, we're looking what is causing that migration. And in Africa, one of the reasons people are migrating is because of war. So how can we resolve that war? So I work in an initiative where we're trying to push the idea of transitional justice. Transitional justice in the sense we are trying to resolve conflicts in a peaceful way, in a way in which there's accountability, in a way in which there's dialogues, in a way in which there's institutional reforms, such that there are initial reasons which are pushing people, which are pushing youth to undertake the dangerous migration journey to Europe or to America. It does not exist anymore. So I'm not going to push as an ambassador for a response to migration which addresses the symptoms. Why they are going to Europe, let's stop it. No, I'm going to push for an address which seeks to look at the underlying causes of the migration, which looks at why they are migrating in the first place and not how they are migrating. I think that is what I'm going to push for, and I'm really going to greatly rely on the
African Union transitional justice policy. Because if we could make good use of it, we'll be able to resolve a lot of the conflicts in Africa, and we could be able to push in good governance. These are the two reasons: good governance. As a result of good governance, we've got corruption, we've got socioeconomic underdevelopment. So if we could resolve these two issues, socioeconomic underdevelopment and conflict, I think there's going to be little reason why the African youth will want to migrate. Then migration is going to be an issue of choice, not an issue of despair. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Annette Sanchez. I am also part of the United Nations team as youth delegate of UN Youth Envoy. And my question is related to climate change and how does climate also affect migration? Last year in Sharm el-Sheikh and 2 years ago in Glasgow, we see at the COP, one of the main issues about migration and climate forced migration justice. So that's what about my question. Last year in Sharm el-Sheikh, being a COP in Egypt, one of the main topics that we were talking about migration was also how does Africa is very affected because of climate change, and these cause a really forced migration in all the countries there. And this year in Bonn, we saw that the agenda of the COP, it's also going to be related in migration in Dubai in about 2 months. So my question is, in your position as youth delegate or, well, youth ambassador of OEM, how do you see this type of environment of migration because of climate change? And how do you see these actions and this type of sanctions of United Nations for COP to all the countries around and all the forums that we do have for a really good resolution about migration, climate change sanctions, and the paper that United Nations is going to make this year in Dubai because of climate change forced migration? Thank you.
Can I answer that first? Wow, that is a tough question. I've been sitting and thinking, like, what am I going to say? You're right, climate impacts migration in a host of ways. Right now, we are looking at there's more of the desertification of the Sahel region. People are being forced to leave their areas, and many people who depend on agriculture for their livelihood, they cannot sustainably rely on that anymore. So that is pushing them. Also, climate is inducing a lot of conflicts in Africa. I will speak especially in the Sahel region. I could use a country like Mali, for instance. In the north of Mali, there's a lot of the desertification also there, and there's the jihadist insurgency. So that combined is pushing lots of Malians down south to Mali. They are going down south as a result of the desertification with their livestock. Farmers are also going down south. And now the south of Mali is becoming really concentrated. Now imagine how, let's say this is an area where there were 10 cattle rearers, there were 10 farmers. Now everybody has left everywhere from the country, coming to probably a city like Bamako. And there's bound to be lots of pressure in the land. There's bound to be lots of pressure, and it's leading to a lot of conflict. This is what we are seeing. And it's also common even in the northern parts of Nigeria, where we are seeing Fulani attacks. This is also as a result of Fulani attacks between the farmers and the grazers. This is also as a result of climate change, whereby the land cannot sustain everyone anymore. This is pushing people more to conflict. At first, the land could sustain all of us, but due to climate change, the land available for us for our cultivation, the land available for our crops cannot sustain us anymore. And this is pushing a lot of people into conflict in order to resolve those situations. And you made mention about sanctions and the United Nations in trying to push forward an agenda of trying to enforce climate change. But I have a, should I say, a little bit a radical opinion to this aspect, because they're involving Africa a lot into these discussions, but we do not contribute a lot to this depletion of the ozone layer. Africa does not contribute as much as Europe and China in the depletion of the ozone layer. So I think this is a problem which has been caused by Europe. It's a problem caused by Asia. It's a problem caused by America. It's not a problem caused by Africa. So when I sit in forums sometimes and people try to push Africa into that discussion of saying what Africa needs to control its emission and everything, yes, that is true. But it is not a problem which we do not push forward. That Africa is not a heavily industrialized country. An industrialized continent, sorry. Africa does not have many heavily industrialized continents. So we do not emit as much as what happens in Europe, what happens in places like, I would say, South America, North America, Asia. Africa does not contribute as much as that. So I think this is something which, if you're going to have the sanctions should be meted out. I support it if it happens. But this is not something which is I don't want to say it's an African problem, it's a global problem. But it's not something which has been caused by Africa. It's a problem which has been pushed by the industrialization of the heavily advanced countries. So I do not know if this addresses some, like I said, I do not have the answers for everything, but I could just address some of the certain questions which you've put forward. Does it address? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gascon had a question?
Thank you. It was actually in response to the first question in terms of what strategies exist. I mentioned yesterday that a lot of the information campaigns don't really reach the intended audience. They do, but often we miss it. But one that has had, one strategy that has worked across West Africa was something that we called migrants as messengers. And it was really taking people who had done gone through the perilous trip, had come back, understood the situation, and went through a certain training, through preparation, and then traveled around their countries to inform youth, inform other people. So this was actually probably a very ground up approach, and I think was quite successful for several years. As often things happen, funding ends, and then we're not able to continue this. But migrants as messengers, using the people who can better reach their friends or, well, their equals in that sense, and make them and really pass on that message. So that was one strategy that we used that I think was successful. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you so much, Ambassador, and the IOM for the great effort that you are doing. For us, it has been amazing and one of the most important topics that we have been discussing during the last 2 days. And I hope that we are going to work during the whole year in order to establish migration, development, and integration as the basic to get the cohesive societies we have discussed about. So thank you so much, and have a safe trip back.
Thank you, Jacobo. Thank you, Global Youth Leadership Forum. Until next year.